they pay a license amount per
Yeah.
customer, so we know each year how many total customers they have for cable TV. We don't have any information about how many internet
Oh.
customers there are for
Yeah.
Comcast. They don't have to
Okay.
report them.
Yeah, all right.
They don't have to report that so you can audit the subscription contribution?
Internet and cable TV are totally separate wings of Comcast.
And how many subs do we have for cable? Comcast?
I'll look it up.
I feel like it was 4,400 last time we spoke. But
Just 4,400, huh?
maybe I'm wrong.
In terms of. Are we not a TV watching nation here?
You know why? They're watching on YouTube.
Oh, I know, everybody says that, I'm not there yet.
Oh, okay.
It's just,
I'll show you.
okay,
Okay,
is it
so
dangerous?
we have a motion to convene.
Second,
So Erwin,
Aye.
Cynthia,
Present.
Corey,
yes, aye.
aye. Okay, so we are convened. So in terms of the next meeting dates, I think we had all agreed previously that Thursdays, same time, same place, second of the month, second Thursday of the month.
Okay,
That's still reasonable for everybody?
yes.
The reason I put that in there, and we were just discussing that before the meeting, is that, and Jason had mentioned at the last meeting, you know, that as the Comcast negotiations seem to have been basically wound up, or is it down? But anyway, it sounded like, you know, it's almost ready to sign the contract, so it seemed like it may be reasonable to have a joint executive session with both the select board and PAC to, you know, really have a presentation on the terms of the contract, see how the select board responds. Jason was saying that there seems to be a lot of lawyers that are involved, but there's no, you know, remaining big issues. And so I guess, is there there's a 6-month extension at this point, isn't there?
They're 180 days each, and I think we've done 3 of them. 2 or 3 of them. So we still have a couple more months on this extension. We did it in December. And yeah, hopefully we get it finished before then, otherwise we have to do it again.
Is there any imperative to do it like next month or the month thereafter? I don't know what the select board, you know, obviously the select board is
Right.
gonna be.
Yeah, so then that's the big wild card here, is that the chair is gonna set the agenda for the select board, and we would come to the chair and say, we have, this needs to be discussed, and then the chair would decide based on all the other stuff. They're starting up right now with all of the budget season and you know, the town meeting prep, the warrant is open or opens in a couple weeks, and so you know, they would just have to decide where this fits, but I'm sure they'll prioritize it once we're ready.
I did mention at the chair's breakfast that, you know, it was coming up anyway to Mary, you know, she didn't mention, you know, what the good timing was yet, but
Right.
I guess whenever people know. So anyway, that was the reason.
Could I ask a question? So Jason, who actually signs the contract?
The select board.
Okay,
So typically what happens in a lot of communities, according to Sue, is that we would have a document that Comcast, the negotiating parties for Concord both agree on. And then we take that and ask PAC to look at it. And then this committee would review, get an overview. Sue would explain the process, what's been done, what was asked for, what other people are getting, answer any questions. PAC would make a vote to recommend, the select board adopt it. The select board could be briefed in executive session. And there's no reason why, to Vince's point, those two things couldn't happen at the same time. Other than that, if the select board wants to save their own time, the people in this committee may need more than the time that the select board need. The select board might just want to hear that you guys like it, and if that's good for them, that you guys like it, and that the town negotiating parties liked it, then they're happy. They might just have a couple questions, or they may want to get into the weeds and may appreciate the deep dive with you guys, and that might be a question for the chair as well. And so we would then, the select board would hold a public hearing and announce their intention to do this and put the contract out, and then they would vote to approve it, and then the select board would sign it and go into effect. So that's kind of generally the process, but to your point, Vince, there are different ways we can handle that.
Right. Oh, and by the way, signing, I think I'd seen on the last agreement that everybody on the select board signed, it wasn't just one signature,
Right.
folk from the chair.
A majority has
Everybody.
to sign, yeah.
Yeah, okay. All right,
So just, this seems like a lengthier meeting than to have it on top of the select board meeting. Does that sound accurate?
Yeah, so I think what typically happens is the select board might have an executive session if they want to get into the weeds, and if they don't, then they would just have a public hearing within the meeting, and it would maybe be a 20 to 30 minute thing, so it could fit within their normal meeting. But you're right, like, they have to find the time. So. And I think it's probably a question for the chair and the town manager to see what the comfort level is for the board. I know the town manager speaks to the board members often, so she can poll them and say, here's where we are, how involved do you
Okay.
want to be? And if they all feel like, if PAC is good, if you're good, we're good, we just want to understand the details and make sure that the town's interests have been advocated for, then it may be minimal. If they want to get into it, then it may take longer. So I think it's just a question for them.
could you?
It might be likely that we just do an executive session.
Yes, now
with Pat.
to PAC?
I can't.
Oh, okay.
We can have an executive session and present, where we are. But the document we can't, but we can absolutely pull it up and go through things.
All right. Okay, I was, just thinking it would be really useful to have an executive session just to be able to get the document.
Yeah,
Before having that session, can we get the document, rather than having, being able to read it prior to having that session?
let me ask our counsel who's reviewing the document now. And I think just to give an update for where we are, Comcast and the negotiating party for the town both agree on the principal components of the agreement,
Yeah,
and it's now being reviewed by our council. It's already been reviewed by Comcast council, but I'm sure once we review it, they'll want to review it again. So once we've reviewed it and then given it to them and they've reviewed it, then we should be at a point where everybody can weigh in and see that, is what I'm guessing. But I'll ask him if it really needs to wait under lock and key, if we can just present elements like we have in the past in the executive session. I don't know, but I'll ask.
as I recall, the new agreement is based on the previous agreement, right?
Right.
Because there's a couple of different ways of going about that, but.
Yeah.
What I've seen, from other town agreements, because, I have looked at the state site and they're all posted, by
Yeah,
the way,
yeah.
everything is posted for the entire state, and they all look pretty much the same, actually, so,
Yeah.
all right. well,
Or
I think-
change it in a different color so that we can,
So in the final.
excuse me.
In the final process, when we review this, we will show you the original, the proposed, and then a legal black line, they call it, which will show you all the differences between the old contract and the new contract. And having this new one based on the old one, that is one huge benefit, because if we used a different base, the whole thing would look different and you wouldn't even be able to pull out the changes.
Okay,
And the other reason why it was beneficial is that there's actually some language that in our old contract that was very favorable to us, that we wanted to not have to fight about.
Mhm.
And so being able to start with that saved us. And so ours may look a little different than a lot of the other ones. It will have the same components, I mean, as our current agreement does, but it does look a little different because I've looked at Cambridge and I've looked at Carlisle's and I've looked at some recent ones too. And ours is different. Our current one is different
Hmm.
In our favor.
in our favor.
Thank you.
MMN.
That's me. All right, I have a lot to update. Well, first thing, very exciting, we were in the Concord Bridge on the January 10th issue, page 8. We were also on the Concord Bridge online as well. Same thing, talking about our win, our first place win at the Alliance for Community Media for our video for the Concord Public Library. So that was fun. And I reached out to Celeste at the Concord Bridge and just, introduce myself, make a connection, and invited them to come here so we can talk about, and I'm gonna have the radio station come to that meeting as well. So we have the town radio station, TV station, and newspaper all together in a media network, a media hub. So we installed new equipment into the CMLP public meeting room.
Oh,
So-
Julie, before you get into that, could you describe who Alliance for Community Media is?
Oh, the Alliance for Community Media is a national organization for all of the cable access stations nationwide. It's a national group, but they also have regional groups as well. And we're part of the Northeast region. And our award was from the Northeast region pool of submissions. Yeah, and so they advocate, they do networking, seminars, and, do conferences during the year. They also have a Hill Day coming up where reps go down to Washington. And I signed up for that, signed up to get more information. I don't know what it is exactly yet, but I should probably talk to you about that.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
saw that. It looks like I do have quite an active political agenda.
Well,
So is Senator Markey still
yes,
guiding that? Okay,
yes.
okay.
Exactly. He hosted all of us one time when we,
Mhm.
in the beginning, when we were, looked like we were losing subscribers and the next Netflix boom and everything. He invited a lot of the Massachusetts stations to his office in Boston.
Okay,
And
yeah, because I was saying there are easier ways than going
okay.
to, you don't even get in the building anymore. You do there's a visitor center now.
Oh, really? I don't know. This was
Yeah.
years ago.
Because I went down to one of the Congresswoman Lori Trahan's district
Mhm.
meetings.
Yeah. And our student engagement continues to increase. I'm happy to say. We have a lot of kids coming down for Flex Block. We're also available for them if they want to come here and volunteer, and then they'll get community hours in exchange. And the doorbell rings. I mean, these kids are coming in, they have ideas for shows, they want to use our green screen. And we talk with them about, brainstorming what they want to do. We have some kids who want to do a talk show. We have a student who has already started a new show. It's called The People's Tomorrow. His name is Gerald Tenenbaum, and he he's had 2 episodes so far, and he interviews local politicians or, key folks locally. So first he interviewed Governor Sununu in New Hampshire, and his second episode was Simon Cataldo. And he interviewed him right here on set.
Huh.
So it's going to be an ongoing series that Gerald is going to lead. He finds the host, he comes up with the interview questions, and we film it and edit it for him.
What's the student's name again?
Gerald Tenenbaum. I'll give you I can send you his videos.
That would be terrific. Thank you.
And then in terms of podcasts, we have launched a new podcast channel for the town of Carlisle. So far, there's already 6 episodes up there, and it's called the Carlisle Connection. And residents can hear things like the town administrator's report. This week, they interviewed folks from the Historical Society. They did an episode about trash and recycling. So that's really picking up, and Tori is producing that with the town administrator, Ryan McLean, and Aubrey, who works with him. So they come here. This black piece here opens up, and we had it open into, we make a little makeshift studio here. It's like an accordion, the way you can build it. And we record the podcast right here with our own equipment. And then Tori edits it and puts it on Spotify and Apple.
Cool.
So that's exciting. And then the other podcast we're still doing is the Concord Prison Outreach. I'm producing that one. We have 4 episodes up now, where Sam Williams and Liz Rust, and every episode they interview different people and different topics. They're getting ready to film episode 5. And that is under the Minuteman Media Network channel on Spotify. And also, Tori is working with the 250 folks to launch a podcast for them, all about the 250th. Polly and Diane Proctor. And so she's working to build that with them, you know, all things you need to know about the 250th. So those are 3 podcasts that we're excited about. And then another exciting project is the MCI Concord. You're gonna like this. We got approval to film a video. So Shannon came to us, and Mark on the select board came to us, got approval, and we are going to film with our drone on Tuesday,
Oh,
high above, did I tell you this? The prison. And I believe this is all to show residents, give residents a good idea of what the land looks like. And I believe this is part of the MCI town study, you know, about the land. So we got permission from the Department of Correction for drone only. The request was, could we go in with cameras and, like, you know, be on the ground and actually walk in?
Yeah.
No.
No?
You can fly your
Interesting.
drone. You can fly your drone from on the other side of the street.
And I think that the goal was to use stock images for the internal part of the presentation,
Yeah.
so they'll use stock images.
So they want to control the internal
Control the intern.
internal views of the,
Well, I guess they said there's photos that the committee can use.
Yeah.
there's some reason for not doing a
yeah,
video.
that's setting up a little red flag there.
Yeah, I don't know.
I
That's
mean, they
what's
have,
approved.
they have the authority.
So
It's just, I'm,
Tori has a drone, a personal drone,
Mm.
and she's the pilot, so she's gonna fly that on Tuesday.
They did allow the press in right after they closed.
the
Walk through
internal.
with cameras. It's online. If you Google it, you'll find it.
Okay.
Various, yeah. It's not,
No, it's just,
it's a little bit
Wondering.
interesting, but it's not extensive, but I think
yeah.
there's nobody
No,
going in there
I've
right
been
now.
inside, so I know what. I've been on the inside.
Uh-oh.
So no town staff has been inside? Or the committee at all?
I thought they have.
I thought they had, okay. Well, anyway, they're not,
I have-
they're being very selective anyway.
I'm
it
trying to stay
sounds
out of
like.
there.
Yeah, that's curious,
Yeah,
especially
there's
when,
nobody there anymore, is there, except for the maintenance people.
Yes, there has been, a tour for staff and, the MCI committee. And they're going to be arranging for some public tours at some point.
Oh,
Oh,
all right, this is on, yeah, taxpayers ought to see,
yeah,
Yeah,
so,
because it's not gonna go, well, who knows what it's gonna.
yeah. So that's a nice project for us because, you know, there's a town committee coming to us for support with video production to help them with their effort. So we're happy to do that. Similarly, Mimi Graney from the Economic Vitality Manager contacted us and asked for our help with some video footage. She and Tori did man on the street interviews this week in West Concord and Concord. The topic being commercial development in town. And Mimi's gonna use this video at an upcoming forum about community development on January 29th.
And where's that gonna?
I think that's at the library. So that was nice again that the town reached out to us
Do we have coordination with the bridge in any way can we get to publicize that you're going to have the drone, to say the upcoming, shows of interest?
Oh, sure, I can ask them that. I mean, in the
Yeah.
paper, you know.
Yeah,
and then
because
they-
that goes out to everybody free.
Yeah. like a
So
minute
that is a
section.
way to get, even if they put down like three shows,
Sure,
but to see more go to blah, blah, blah,
sure,
the,
absolutely,
because I think one of the reasons why people, but the viewership might be low, is people don't know what's on when,
right,
whereas they do in other
Right.
formats.
right. And
Um,
that's part of what we're gonna do eventually when we get onto Roku and Apple, is we are gonna start scheduling things in blocks. So that people can anticipate, like an exercise block, for
oh,
example. in the
cool,
morning.
yeah.
So we're working on that. But now the broadcast server equipment is still in boxes in the equipment room, and we're waiting for them to come and install it. And then when that hardware gets installed, then we can start training and learning about the app, the Roku app more. Hopefully February. So that's my update. Those are my highlights. And one other
Impressive,
important-
thank you.
I'm sorry.
That's impressive, thank you.
Oh, thanks, Erwin. One other exciting update is Sunday is Jason's birthday.
How old are you gonna be, Jason?
Yes, thank you.
It's on my list.
Happy birthday, early.
you.
I would like to add, like, in addition, we're really starting to look at all the 250th events that
Mm,
Julie is going to be
Forgot to say that.
participating in, and starting to do walkthroughs and sort of drive, sort of figuring out what we're gonna need, because obviously from here going out, requests are gonna come fast and furious, and we wanna make sure that we have coverage and we have an idea of where's our best
Mhm.
vantage point, where are we
Yeah.
gonna be situated, where the main event, I mean, we know where the events are gonna be, but now how do we meet, how are we there in order to capture all of that? So I think that's gonna be huge on our to-do list for the
Yes.
next coming months.
Yeah,
Can we talk about jumbotrons now?
Well, I have it in my presentation,
Okay.
because there's some things that, I'd like you to look at, but
Okay.
absolutely, it's on the docket for.
Yeah, because one of the things that the 250th needs to communicate to you, if we have two, because there's going to be an area for the disabled with
Okay.
chairs, and they were thinking at the umbrella. This has not been cast in stone by any means, but that would be an area other than the center of town
Mhm.
that I would think that people who aren't as mobile as others.
Sure,
Everybody thinks they're gonna be at the bridge, but we know that's not possible.
right. Okay.
Yes,
Okay,
we can
so,
talk.
so it's good that there's early involvement,
Yeah.
so,
Cause I'm gonna reach out to, I already started reaching out to, Robert and Gary and
Good.
John.
yeah.
Cause I know the parade route, but I need to know exactly where is all of the action happening, so we can know where our cameras should be. And then where's this Jumbotron gonna be?
And they're also talk of setting up a media area
Yeah,
at St. Bernard's, parking lot out back, near the town hall. So I'm sure you're gonna wanna know where the other media for them, and if you need space there too, the committee who's handling media will,
Okay.
wanna know that, so it
okay,
can be accommodated.
okay, good, thank you.
Because I think the citizens of Concord, we wanna give them the best shot at seeing their own parade,
I agree,
because we're starting to hear a little of that.
that's great.
I didn't realize this weekend is the same as Easter.
I know.
Easter and the marathon. Oh, yeah, it's a nightmare.
So it's gonna be
Good
hard for those
Friday.
parishioners
Good
to get to St.
Friday.
Bernard's.
250th Easter Marathon.
Does anybody know if Prince William has RSVP'd yet?
No, we have no idea if the president's coming.
He hasn't, I know.
I heard
Well, that
no.
would be very last minute.
Yeah, that would be
Last minute.
very last minute.
I heard
Um,
no, that he said no.
I don't,
Who, the prince?
President.
No,
Prince and the
the
President.
president.
Oh, okay.
I don't know
that's
where
a
that
good
came
book
from, but-
title, Prince and the President.
Something to do with Philadelphia. I think he had a commitment in Philadelphia, I think.
He's got a big plane in Hanscom's 10 minutes from here.
Yeah.
Oh, no, and.
And
Anyway,
he'd love to make us look silly.
Yeah, it'll be about 10 days ahead that we really find out one way or the other. It's very last minute.
because he always abides by protocol.
Oh, right. So we can predict every move.
Right.
Well,
Anyway.
doesn't one of our 250th groups have a contractor of some kind that's doing coverage?
Yes, they're called Anthem, but I
Yeah.
don't have an update on what they're doing.
So, yeah, they're not gonna be, I mean, they're only on contract to do very specific thing, which we believe is gonna be the parade, but there's not much more detailed than that. Really, honestly, it doesn't really impact her per se, because she's gonna cover the items that, that are important and the things that we need to cover,
Mhm.
so. I mean, they could all show up, but she's front row with her
Right.
crew, so our goal is just to be where where the best events are gonna be, or
Mhm.
where we want coverage, and that's sort of how we're going with that. There is a standing 250th meeting every other week at the townhouse.
Yeah.
That really is a lot of the town personnel about all the sort of things that we're gonna need to support the event. And Julie's coming with me next week because they will have a communications company coming in that does sort of the comms and stuff. So she'll sort of get to hear about what they're planning for that. But so, I only said that to say is, the next several months, there's gonna be 250th all day, every
Yeah,
day.
yeah.
And we suspect that as we get closer and closer, the requirements are gonna
Right.
become faster and faster. And, like I've said to Julie before, we've got to just make sure that we prioritize and we know which ones we're gonna do. And then if there's by chance something that we can't get to, we gotta communicate that.
The transportation is a big issue for people
Mhm.
in Concord, because the roads are gonna be closed.
Right.
So that's a good area to cover along with the events.
Okay.
And I think there's going to be, and one of the things they've talked about the last two meetings is attention for the elderly
Okay, that's good.
who want to watch their own
Yeah,
parade.
Yeah. And do we know yet who's gonna be the host or the
The
MC?
MC? Not that I have
Is it the
heard.
same person who?
Have you heard anything, Jason? I do not know who's gonna do that.
Okay, I'll find out, because I wanna put my camera on them. But I also heard that the students the student radio station is gonna be there with their own student commentators.
Good.
That's cool.
We should coordinate them in those so that they know
Yeah.
what we know, and some of us have had until help comes training, which I think is critical for anybody who's working this event, because with that many people, what's the
Sure.
percentage of eventual catastrophes?
Right.
I mean, it's Murphy's Law. So it's just helpful in court. What's court's last name? Oh, thank you. I have 77-year-old word finder issues. Led up 2 sessions this last weekend at the high school,
Okay.
and it was really good.
Okay.
A-
I agree.
And actually, I think it's a good thing for everybody who's working that day
Mhm.
to have that kind of knowledge,
Yes, I agree.
because it's an assessment of how much you should get involved too.
Are they gonna do it again?
I don't know. I think that would be driven more by demand than it, yeah, I don't think there are actual plans, but I think it's, there are only 2 kids there. And court said after much discussion, they determined, because they said, did you recruit high school kids? And they said they wanted them to be 18 so that they're legal adults. I could argue that both ways. So But you know, some people are just gonna be involved in logistics, so,
Right.
but anyway. It was good stuff to know.
So Mima is the one that hosted that training.
Yeah, Mima
So-
and Fred Ryan, who's doing security on the 250th.
So as they get closer and if there's a need, they're willing to come back out and do another session to do it again. So, public safety is tracking that as part of their.
And they're doing a really, really good job. And residents should be reassured that since the marathon bombings, our local folks the training has been exponentially more, and they can handle what, you know, hopefully whatever's thrown at them. But they're
I have
much
a
better
quick-
trained.
I have a quick aside, just not relevant to 250, but we run an Airbnb here at our house, and there's right now only 2 Airbnb available in all of Concord that week. Not Best Western, Marriott rates are triple their normal rates. It's $650 a night to get into the Marriott down on Baker Ave area. So we only doubled our rates instead of tripling. But yeah, there's very little housing available.
Usually you do 100-mile circle around the event.
Yeah, no, if you do a big circle, I'm just talking in Concord itself, there are very
Yeah.
few. Just 2. One's 1,000 a night.
Well, some people are talking about leaving their homes and renting them out.
Yeah, that's easier said than done.
I know, yeah, no,
Yeah.
Not
You
going
gotta
there.
clean it, you gotta find the person, you gotta collect. People talk about it a lot, and then you gotta advertise it, so it's not easy. And if you
Well,
wanna get an
it's-
Airbnb, you gotta get going now, because you need to get licensed.
Yeah. Do you have any sense of what the Boston market's doing, or?
I haven't looked there. I assume, because it's Patriot State, it's gonna be out of control.
Okay,
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
and the marathon, yeah.
Yeah, so it's gonna be,
So all the people in for the, oh, God.
Okay.
so, sorry.
Well, pre-pandemic, actually, the whole hotel occupancy rate in Boston and in Concord was 80% or over.
On
So-
Patriots Day? Or just generally?
Generally, actually,
Wow.
you know, you think of the holidays, but you know, there's a graduation season where everything is always
Yeah,
full, so.
in our private schools, those
Yeah.
graduation, yeah.
Okay,
Thanks, Julie.
all righty.
If barring any objections, I'm gonna bring up the, Right, I sent over the slide presentation about an hour or so, so I'm sorry for the delay, but Julie and I have been working on it, but just wanted to go over our proposed FY 26 budget. So some of the things we're gonna cover today, a little bit of background and what our purpose here is. I'll review the operating revenue and go over our operating expenses, both in personnel and non-personnel. Go over our capital requests that we put in for FY 26 and then review the fund balance. And then, although not part of the FY 26 per se discussion, we do want to talk about the jumbotrons because there is a financial aspect to that, so we'll cover that. And I have some information about that. So just to go over, obviously, this is the first time that Julie and I have independently, run the budget. So I want to first say a huge thanks to Julie because she's been very patient with me over the past several weeks to go over all of the codes and things. And so I can honestly say that I definitely went through a deep dive of the budget, just for my edification to sort of learn all the sort of the different, aspects of it. We reviewed prior year submissions. We identified both the revenue and the expenses, in detail. Keeping in mind that for us, this is the first time we really have executed this in Munis, in the new system. So, we went in depth in looking at that. We were down to cost codes to make sure we understood all the cost codes and how things were being broken apart, and had some discussions about in the future how we would like to do that. While I think Jason has said in the past, the number, the way the budget is presented is like, you have your revenue, you have your expenses, and as long as those numbers, that's really what they,
The gazintas and
yeah,
gazoutas,
right.
yeah.
So that's, usually the basis that you look at. But Julie and I do believe that we want to make sure that the cost codes are accurate, because if we do want to pull a report, which Munis does allow us to do, to say, hey, I want to see in FY25 how much we spent on conferences, how much we spent on mileage, how much we spent on lodging, how much we spent on software, how much, we wouldn't be able to do that effectively without doing a lot of work to figure out, so if we properly categorize them in the beginning, then we'd be able to have that level of detail for every year. So we did spend quite a bit of time going through that. And then obviously the whole purpose of this was, number one, for us to learn a budget, but number two, for us to present it to you so that we can gain approval, and then we can move forward in the next steps of the budget process. So we're going to start with the operating budget. If you notice, I changed the format a little bit, but you should recognize all of the verbiage because I kept the verbiage the same. So the Comcast fee, obviously, that's our major bracket, and our Carlisle fee that we charge. And then there's several areas that you'll see that after 23, we don't have any inputs for, because we no longer have revenue in that area. So for the proposed budget for 26, we're looking at approximately $320,000 in Comcast fees. You see the Carlisle fee go up quite significantly over.
Yeah.
And Julie can go over, because they have expanded the things that they're looking for us to do. So she can just go in depth in what we're doing for them that we haven't done previously.
Yeah, so we film their select board meetings twice a month, just like Concord, they're on the same schedule. But then they also are launching this podcast channel, so that's something we're doing for them. And then also they come to us sometimes for special projects. So I just did a video for them called Carlisle Winter Safety Tips, where I interviewed the police, police chief and the fire chief and Board of Health, and they all, kind of spoke to the camera, speaking to residents. If you're in a fire and this happens, and you can reach out, and this is how you can get shelter and things like that. So that was like a special project.
That's a good project,
Yeah,
especially after watching California.
I know. You should do it. That's on YouTube if you want.
Okay.
So,
After you show me how.
after I show you how, yeah. So because for these reasons, we're spending more staff time for Carlisle.
So we're going to project that there's going to be increases in that, just because I think the more we do, likely, the more that they'll ask us to do.
Mhm.
And so I increased that budget a little bit to just reflect that. And then obviously, the miscellaneous revenue, I highlight some money allocated to that. And that really is a guesstimate, right? Because we don't know what private, individual will ask us to do something. But if we do, we have the capacity to do that. We have the ability to do that. And that would be revenue within our, for our budget. Before I move on from this slide, any questions?
Yeah, that's interesting that your operating budget has gone down since FY 23.
Revenue?
Operating revenue.
Operating revenue was 452 and a half thousand, and then
Point out that you're.
Yeah, so what we noticed, when I pulled the actuals for FY 23, there's a couple things. So we got our last in lieu of franchise payment
okay.
from the broadband, which was only slated to go to 23, and that was the last time that we saw it. Also, what we noticed, which is why you see that, is when they get the revenue in, it doesn't automatically get applied, and sometimes there's a bit of a backlog to when it
Yeah.
gets applied, and so in this situation, that is likely, that 96,000 is likely was a Comcast payment and another small piece of revenue that sort of sat there until it was applied to the right account. And so now in F-23 actuals, I have this odd amount that wasn't, allocated to Comcast.
That was 22 revenue. that
Right.
Applied.
As of the, yeah, I just didn't want you to go through that kind of it was almost $100,000.
Yeah.
Decrease and not address it if you needed it for your, if it significantly changed what you could do.
Yeah, no, so that I did put that because that is what we currently have in our Munis report, and to me is actual, actuals, that we know is confirmed, so.
Okay,
But I think we can explain what that is.
okay.
Moving to the operating expenses, and there's both personnel expenses and non-personnel expenses, and like I said, you should, recognize all of the categories because I kept the categories the same, chunked them the same, so I'll just sort of go through it. I won't go through every nitty detail, but I will sort of point out the things that have changed, which causes the numbers to change. So if you look between 25 and 26, you see our personnel expenses only go down and
Go down, yeah.
slightly, and there's a reason for that. So when it was calculated in 25, Jason calculated 5.20 full-time equivalents, meaning that was the full-time staff, plus there's also a senior producer billet that is on the books but was not filled, but he included it as in part of the budget because
Good.
potentially they were gonna fill it.
Good
And
for
then
you,
we
Jessica.
carried all of our videographers that were limited status and allocated hours for them, so that we had that flexibility, especially knowing that in 25, we're gonna have the 250th, and we wanted to really have the resources to be able to make that happen. So that's laid in, so you're gonna see the numbers, what that numbers consist of. Also, in that figure, it only include the personnel payroll. It did not include the health insurance, dental insurance, and the other benefits things. Now, roll to 26. What I am proposing is, number one, I added the healthcare and those benefits into the costs.
The 352,000 has the bennies in it?
It has our allocation to that. Yes, so we pay a portion of it.
Yeah,
But what I did is I did remove the full-time equivalent for the senior producer. And that's only because Julie and I have sort of talked through, and we don't really have, with the videographer first that we have and her full-time staff, and the fact the situation was a little different before Julie got here. It was a manager, but it was a non-working manager, meaning that individual really did the management piece, was not also part of doing the editing, going out to do footage. Julie's a little different. Julie really does both. She does the management piece, but she also goes out and does shoots. She does coverage. So the reality is now we have the benefit that we can utilize, she's a working manager. Therefore, that senior producer really is not as much of a requirement. And the workload that we have, we've been able to maintain and be able to even surplus it or up plus when we need to, based upon the support that we get from our videographer that, Arcadi is awesome. He, supports us anytime we need it. So we really do not feel that we need to carry that senior producer billet forward. And so therefore, that's when you see that the proposed budget's 352 and there isn't much of a difference because we go down to 4.20 full-time equivalents.
How does the
You-
compensation compare, to surrounding towns?
yeah,
The compensation?
Yeah,
that you all get.
the salaries and what you pay to,
in your benefits.
part-time people. How comparable is it?
Well, right before I got here, sorry, it was all part of the compensation comp and survey that they did. And
Okay,
They did a
so that was
survey
just
of,
recently,
The town did a classification of compensation, evaluation. They hired a consultant to evaluate all town positions. And prior to that, the media people were on a separate schedule for media.
Mhm.
And now all staff have been collapsed based on their job descriptions and their essential job functions and their years of, required experience and education and all that. So they now, like requirements are in like buckets or grades. And then there are steps within those grades and a pay plan, and that's all been done at a town level. So maybe you could speak to both the staff and then also the videographers, because I feel like maybe there's a different answer to different ones. Like, I don't know, what are you seeing industry wide?
Oh, I
Yeah.
think, no, I think we're comparable. I think we're in good shape
For
So,
the full-time staff.
for the
But what
full-time
about
staff.
The full
Okay,
staff.
so for
And the
full-time
video.
staff, yes.
Okay.
For our videographer though, I think it's very much under compensated. He's a limited status and he's lifesaver for us. He's a rock star. And he gets paid, I think, way too. But we're working on it.
But we're working on that.
and have you considered that, just don't you, my, concern here is I don't want you to leave yourself short to come in with a good budget. Because you've got a very, very busy year coming up, extraordinarily
So
that,
that's 25 though, 25, it's,
okay,
this is 26.
okay, so this goes into effect
26, so
in 26.
July. 1st
July,
of the-
okay.
So I think the way I would sort of coach it is, we come to you with a budget every year. So we come, and for the 25, we've laid in the resources that we believe that we need in order to cover staff, in order to cover any events. And from Julie's perspective, she has what she needs to cover on the full-time side as well as on the limited status or, part-time side.
And even if you brought the videographer up to industry standards, comparable industry standards in the area.
Yeah, so there's a process for that, and we actually have to go through a process, and it has to go again. It's gonna be comparable, there's gonna be a review done by the personnel board that it's gonna be comparable to what other video, it's more than just the pay. The other issue is the job description is only for videographer. There's some work that needs to be done to update it because that's not all he does.
Okay,
And right now, the classification is he just does the videography work and then he hands it over to the team and then they do all the editing, but that isn't the case. So there's a process that we have to go through to make that all correct. But do I think it's gonna prohibit us from doing it with the 26 budget that's proposed? No.
okay, just as
do.
long as you're,
Thank
That's
you.
the thing,
no,
yeah.
I really, because it's harder to fill in later than it is, I always estimate heavy and then go down from there, rather than, yeah,
And the other piece is in 26, right, when we come back for the 27 budget, if the landscape has changed, right? And we feel like Julie tells me over the course of the year, I'm like, I can't support all the requests that I'm having and all that. I mean, we do our budget every year and we carry, right? So it's, and the position, I'm not proposing that the position go away in the sense of like,
Right.
from I'm just saying what I'm gonna
This year, yeah,
allocate for
okay.
26. So we're not doing away with the position, I'm just not allocating it in my 26 budget.
When I find staggering is that everything I touch and buy seems at least 25% higher than I thought it was gonna be, or that I bought it for the last time I bought it.
That does seem that way every time I go to the grocery store.
And I'm sure it's just not a feeling. I think, I mean, I can compare prices in my cabinet on. And so I don't know how people budget now.
So, like I said, we can relook at it. Julie and I have had conversations about our current staffing and we feel pretty comfortable with where we're at and moving forward with the proposal. But,
Okay.
if it's something that we need to relook at, of course, we can relook at that. So moving on to facilities and maintenance, that's pretty.
On part-time people, is there an hour limit for the part-time people? How many hours they can work?
Technically, yes, it's 19 hours, but I think the way it works is that as long as over the course of the year, we don't exceed that significantly, we're okay. And we've never had an issue where we're like, hey, that person can't work because they've exceeded their 19 hours for their paycheck. So that hasn't seemed to be an issue.
And that has to do with the benefits.
Right, because he's limited status versus part-time status. And I mean, there's different ways. The other piece is like, I think what they've done in the past and the strategy in the past is if you look at our books, we have how many videographers do we have that are on our books?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's,
They're not right now.
but not all of them are active, right? We have a very active one, and then we have one that's semi-active, and then we have people that, I think if we needed support, Julie could call them in and they would do, special events, or we have ones that like, oh, I'll cover that, or this is what I want to do every year. So there's that, I think is wonderful, the flexibility in that, and then being able to have that on the book so that we don't have to start a whole onboarding process to get somebody to do one event is wonderful. So I don't propose to change any of that. I think that works really, really well for us, and I would want to continue that. I'm just looking at from a perspective of carrying, the debt that we would have. How long have we been without that senior producer?
Years.
Well, no, we had a senior producer and that person was promoted into a different job. And
Oh, okay.
when they were promoted, we kept their old position on the books in case we were gonna fill it, because we wanted to see how much time would they have as the production manager versus as that. So that's why that ended up a vacancy,
Yeah,
Uh-huh.
but how long has it been vacant?
a year and a half.
Okay. That's
Whenever
good.
Matt
When she
got
got
promoted.
her- Right, okay.
Yeah, so I mean, like, we can look at, and like I said, I think Julie gives us a lot of flexibility that she, does, also a lot of the hands-on work with the team. So she's another pair of hands that does, that does coverage. So
Yeah,
that's
filming
helpful.
and editing,
Yeah.
not just these budgets.
But don't get struck by lightning or anything this year.
I won't.
Next year.
So the part-time people, are they typically holding other jobs also, or
Yes.
are they always
Yeah.
looking for work?
Our limited status person now, yes, he has other freelance jobs.
Okay.
So, and that's why, that's more of a personnel discussion. Julie's brought that up, and we got to work that through human resources and that piece. But I think some of the other ones, it's more of is it a hobby that
Yeah.
they do, and they want to cover a particular event, or they have a couple of, couple of hours that they would want to participate, but
Yeah.
that works out well. Now, I think we do usually have the same person or the same one or two people, and that's just the reality of it. But we've been able to cover everything that we've been required to cover, and anything that has come to us as a request, we've not had to, turn anyone away, in addition to what they do here at the school and, supporting the students and all that. So I think we're in a good spot.
And we're always looking for volunteers too. We found a volunteer at the COA. And he filmed a few things for us, and then we're trying to round up student volunteers for our 250th coverage. So that's always good. The school here, they have a film club. They have a class, a filmmaking video class. And then in addition to that, they have a film club. So there's a lot of creative.
And,
It's
and
on the other
you
side.
did a profile on the library, so you know about the studio they have there.
That's right. That's right.
Okay.
Moving on to is that any more questions on the personnel expense? So that
Hi.
takes us.
It's Megan. I'm sorry. I have my hand raised, but I'm just gonna lower it now. How are you guys? Hi. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yeah, we just can't see you. Hold on.
Oh, I
You're
can
great.
see it. I can put I'm not sure what I look like, but whatever.
Oh, no. Sorry, it's not that we couldn't see your video. It's that we can't see the participants, so we couldn't see that you had your hand raised. We're just trying to figure that out.
Oh, okay. Got it.
Go ahead, though.
So I just wanted to, thank you. Yeah, I just wanted, it's more of like maybe more of a statement than a question, but I just wanted to double check. I heard you say that if there is more demand that you would be able to, not re-budget, but find the resources for Julie and everybody there.
For 26?
Yes.
Yeah, so if you look at our, yeah, we would have to go back and, make the request, but yeah, I think we have the resources, yes.
Okay, great. Yeah, I just wanted to also say, like, I feel very protective. I just want to make sure that everybody's being compensated well because they're just such a valuable resource in town. Really, really
Thank
wonderful to have. And
you.
yeah, I really appreciate everything they've done, and I just see it getting more and more popular. So that's what I was a little concerned that perhaps they might need more people, but just wanted to add that. Thank you.
That might definitely be in the future.
Yeah.
Thank you.
That was good advice.
All right, moving on to facilities and maintenance, that's, really our maintenance bill here, and it covers our custodial services, it covers our fire alarm maintenance, those are sort of the building maintenance items that we would need, in order to just make sure that she has what she needs here on the side of the building. Purchase services is sort of a grouped category, and the grouped category includes a lot of different things. It includes professional services, meaning, for example, services that we buy like from the attorney that we got that helped us negotiate our Comcast contract. It's technical services like that. It's our software licensing that they use to edit their images and things like that. So it's sort of a bucketed group of things that covers that. The largest portion of it really deals with software licensing that they require to do their work, and then just sort of we've allocated if you notice, it hasn't gone up that much, only because in the previous year, we had a lot allocated for the professional services, and that we just feel like is gonna come down significantly. I still allocated some money towards that, but not to the level that we have done in the future. So that would be something that, if we do a 10-year contract, in 10 years, you'll see, that's gonna be elevated again, but that's that category. Supplies and materials, I think that was the largest jump that you saw between 24, 25, and 26. And that's because I really do feel that we went grossly underfunded, or not that we went grossly underfunded, but we didn't make allocations for supplies and materials in that piece. And now Julie is doing a little bit of somewhat of a catch up to get all the things that she wants, all the things that the student, that the folks need, bring it up to, to a place where, we have everything we need for, whether even if it's office supplies or, just things that they need in the office. So I did increase that quite a bit in order for her to play some catch up. And then as I see us going forward, it shouldn't be that much of a jump every year like it has been in the last 2 years.
Now, does that include equipment here too?
That's coming.
That's
That's
coming.
coming.
Yeah.
Okay.
The other charges and expenses is one that I would really like to talk about, because I am a firm believer that, especially in our area of expertise, me and IT, her in her team and in production, and it is, you really need to stay abreast of what is going out in your in your area of expertise. And the way to do that is you have to build relationships and go out to conferences and to take leadership courses. I'll use the example that Julie just finished up a leadership course a couple of months ago, where she went, and it was
for community
media leaders specifically. And that, number one, she was able to make contacts within her field, and number two, she was able to actually focus leadership, leadership styles or leader things within her community. And I think that's really important. And we need to do that not just for her, but also for the other folks in her that work for her, because like everything else, things change so quickly. It's like equipment, right? And so the way we were editing yesterday is going to be different than the way we edit tomorrow, and it's certainly going to be different the way we edit in a year, right? So I wanted to allocate more funds for her in the other charges, which specifically deal with professional development, participation in professional conferences, participation in like the ACM, those types of things, which increases their knowledge base, and then in turn is returned to us with their products, right? That's, so we've increased that, and I think we've budgeted that each of her and her team will be able to do one or two of those two events, plus a professional development selection. We just had one. She is not I just sent one over to her for leadership in municipalities, which I thought was a really
Yeah.
great one for her.
Now, who put, who puts this on? Is it different groups or is it?
Different groups, like this one was the League of Municipal Governments, like
Yeah,
there's
yeah.
like different groups. I mean, I've
Yeah.
come across several already in my short time that I've been here. And I think those are important to pass on.
Mhm.
The ones that are specific to their career field or their area of expertise, but also the ones that grow their leadership or their management skills. So that's what's bucketed in that. So
Can we pause just for a second? First of all, I think that's a critical component. And I'll compare that to what's going on at the State House, because we have the least transparent and accountable legislature now in the nation. Massachusetts, which is just startling. And like Simon Gontaldo, who's a superstar, didn't know about the Council of State Governments, which is one of our first references to say, what are other states doing, on any particular issue, so we can look at other legislation, look at their research, you're not reinventing the mousetrap each time you consider new policy. And so that has been critical for a lot of people in government for the exact same reasons that you talk about. Jason, I wanted to know if you had experience in looking at this line item in other budgets so that we're not poking out in any way.
I'll look to Amalia, since I don't oversee the budget anymore. So we did, every year, we kind of look at our peers. So I'm sure like the historical trend is that we're on par here.
Okay, good.
Yeah,
Good.
so I'm not worried about.
Okay,
and so from the other budgets that I've prepared, yes, I'm putting it in there.
good. No, I think it's, I really think, from my own experience, that you got, the more experience you can get and the more people you can know, really affects everything. Yeah.
And it's also, I talk about, it's also in terms of a network, you build a professional network, right? Of if, we have an issue or we have something, you extend out to your professional network, like in the CIOs, there's a professional network of CIOs across the state, and I can go out and be like, so I have this issue.
So, yeah.
What have you dealt with?
Oh,
What
yeah,
have you
we
done?
did it last year.
did
We
it
had a
last
big
year. We
fight.
did about it,
Yeah.
so let me not repeat
Yeah.
that mistake over.
Oh, and the media is going to be under attack for the next 4 years. So, having peers that can
Yeah.
consult with each other is going to be critical. I think.
So I think of it in terms of an investment versus, I know it's an expense from a perspective of we're taking it from the budget, but it's an investment in our people. And it's also, I also tend to see in other places that I work that if we have an investment of people, the retention is better, right? So when we struggle with retention, right?
That's
Within,
which
if
is
you-
expensive.
Yeah, it's just expensive, and you can see a direct correlation. If people feel valued and they have,
And they're
um,
growing.
they tend to stick around longer. So overall, those are the things, like I said, the categories should look very familiar to you, because those are sort of the way I siphoned off of what Jason did, and I sort of use the same categories. And I think the only thing that Julie and I will look at is if maybe there's more clarity, or maybe adding a category or two, depending on, for future years. But I think, for this year, I think we feel pretty comfortable. We know what's in each of those categories. We know what we're expending and what we're proposing, and we sort of have a good idea of what that is.
Before.
Amalia, you should go to work for some private companies. It's very refreshing to hear your attitude.
Yeah.
That's the benefit of M&M being part of the town. So it's a real
Don't
plus.
steal her. Shush. Tell her she loves Concord more than anything.
What was your question, Vince?
Well, just going back to the personal services, it just occurred to me, that's where the Adobe stuff is, the.
Purchase services, yes.
Okay, I noticed that it looks like Final Cut Pro is kind of coming back.
Oh,
Is
really?
that getting used more widely now again?
Not that I know of, but most people use Premiere Pro.
Right,
I haven't heard Final Cut coming back.
yeah, well,
That's
it
interesting.
was, what this is the editing software that professionals used, and Final Cut used to be quite popular, but Apple goofed up. This must be, what, 10, 15 years ago now? But I was just wondering, because it had previously been used in a lot of Hollywood productions,
Yeah.
you know, and the thing about it is, it's not a subscription service, it's a one-time payment. So.
What the other editing software I'm seeing people use more and more is DaVinci. You heard of
Yeah.
that one? Yeah.
Okay.
I like the name.
I know.
Okay, no, I was just wondering.
All right, moving on, I think, to our capital request. I think somebody
May
brought this
I
up.
ask a question
Yeah, of course, Terry.
before we move on? So, I appreciate all the detailed analysis you're doing for the budgets. And I'm wondering for, the costs and revenues for Carlisle, how you figure it out and, whether, I'd like to see it, on a break-even basis. So, do you know that the revenue coming in for Carlisle is paying for the services to Carlisle?
The rate that they charge Carlisle for services is known, and it counts for all of the charges for the personnel required to cover those things. So the Carlisle pays a fixed amount plus an hourly amount for all their coverage. So that's how we know that it covers everything.
Great. So that gets adjusted, every couple of years, you take a look at it?
We have an intermunicipal agreement with Carlisle, and it's about 2 years old, so I think it would be next year that we'd refresh that.
FY 26.
Yeah, like probably sometime during this year, we'd refresh it for the following year.
Okay. Has Carlisle's population changed in any significant?
Not
No.
significantly, no.
All right, moving to the capital request. So one of the things that, in reviewing some of the footage from the last budget, meeting that you guys had last, I think it was March. One of the things that was brought up, I think I think it was Terry, was talking about, because our fund balance always is so high, we want to make sure that we're always projecting out improvements, right? Because there's really no need for us to be very, we want to be fiscally responsible, but we also have the ability to be able to retrofit the studio the way it needs to be retrofitted. We have the resources to do that. So one of the things that we put in from FY 26, I know we're discussing only 26, but moving forward is we always want to have a category in there for either equipment upgrade, computer upgrade, or miscellaneous equipment, which will allow us, if there's something that comes out that the team would benefit from, that we have the ability to be able to move and be able to do that. And so we always want to lay into our current year and out years changes to our studios, upgrades to our equipment, upgrades to the things that we have here, because number one, it provides a better product, but it also keeps us current and fresh, and it's again, it talks to we're leading edge sort of delivering products. So if you notice, one of the things there's a couple things that we laid into FY 26. So the studio was one of the big ones that we talked about, because we do need to make sure there we go. We want to talk about studio upgrades, and Julie, she has some ideas of what she would like to do, and I'd like to sort of talk about that. And we can ask questions, but go ahead, Julie.
So, first and foremost is, you notice we don't have any cameras here right now. The cameras that we have are old, and they're filmed in 720, which means, you've heard of HD and 4K and all that. This is a older, this is senior
Old is
citizen.
not bad.
A senior citizen cam.
Does that mean he's 4 years old or something
Yeah,
in tech land?
exactly.
5 minutes old?
Exactly. And, the viewfinder is black and white. It's not even in color. So it's very difficult to work with when you're lighting and things. So one of the improvements would be to buy 3 studio cameras. And then through wires, would filter out of here and into the control room. And then that would also be updated as well, upgraded as well. So that's, the dream, that's what we want to do. So, so that, when students are here, we're teaching them on the best equipment, not on the ancient equipment.
And then also build in like our equipment, a refresh rate, like, that we should have, right? So, most equipment, IT equipment, camera has sort of a refresh cycle, right? So we
Mm.
want to be on a refresh cycle to make sure, like, for example, we did computer replacement in FY 24 and FY 27. We need to look at replacing that equipment because it's likely that it's old for the technology, right, for where we at. So we've done that. We've sort of built into FY 26 and the out years capital requests that we want to see, from studio equipment to replacing the field cameras that they use
Yeah.
in order to upgrade them. Then there's two different computer replacements. There's the one that they use for at their personal stations that they do editing, and then there are ones that they do for the editing, which is a separate machine.
Right.
And we want to make sure that those are always lockstep, to make sure they're up to date. And so when you look at our capital request for FY 26, it's a little high, but I think we're doing some investment in moving the studio forward and replacing equipment.
Can I also add that, Carrie, has, wants to, change the townhouse in terms of, location of audience versus where the head table is, and she wants to shift things around there, work on making the acoustics better. So whenever that change occurs, we have to move our.
Well, your
cameras.
wiring too. Well, the
that'll be
wiring
not-
has to be compatible. right?
And then that'll be an opportunity for us to upgrade our equipment. Select board room, get some speakers in there.
And then it'll also improve, the quality, right? Because right now that room is really echoey and it doesn't give you good acoustics, right? So the town would take care of the acoustics piece and their piece. We would be, we should upgrade the equipment so that when we film in there, any event, the quality is good and it takes it to benefit all the changes that they've made to the room, right? So that's, is allocated in there as
Yeah.
well.
Now, what do you do with the equipment you get rid of? Is there a way to recycle all this? Okay,
So does that cover the ADA requirements? Is that covered within the MMN budget, capital budget
Probably not.
for the
ADA?
ADA,
The changes.
adequacy, I
The
guess we
facilities
call it?
department
Yeah.
does carry a line for accessibility, and they've been funding some of the listening assistive devices in the past. So, not historically, I mean, in conjunction for sure, but they weren't paying for it MMM strictly.
Okay, so,
They're making sure their equipment was compatible with whatever,
Mhm.
and it was originally Ryan and then John and now Russ. So somebody's been moving around over there. Who's in charge?
and
I have
on
a
the
question, so, Julie, and I don't know if you're aware, we still have frequently, almost every school committee meeting, issues in that room. And I don't know if we need more of a capital investment or better collaboration between us and school administration to get the setup right.
I'm sorry, Cynthia, you cut out for just half a second. Could you repeat that?
So almost at every school committee meeting, we have some kind of issue with our meeting
At Ripley.
Mm-hmm.
at Ripley.
Okay.
Like last time, the Zoom we didn't have any Zoom. And it's,
Yeah.
most people in the room cannot hear what's going on.
You mean the audience?
Correct,
Or-
in the room. People can hear on
Okay.
Zoom if Zoom's working.
Okay.
So,
Yeah, I heard the Crestron wasn't working, but we talked to Peter Kelly and I believe he got it fixed.
okay, the problem is there's no tech on site, when we start our meeting. So it's sort of
Mhm.
like, ugh, So I don't know if we need to test it earlier in the day or
Okay,
frequently we don't, it's like somebody walks in and we start the meeting right then. And so he doesn't have any time to troubleshoot.
right. I know that
So
happened.
I'm just wondering if we need to have somebody start the meeting like a half hour early, we could check everything.
Sure.
And
We
you
can do
guys should
that.
make that request, because I just don't think it's fair for you know, him to try
Yeah.
to fix things in a minute,
Okay.
you know what I'm
That's
saying?
good. Yes,
So either somebody else on the school committee or staff or something, it just seems like we just need to have a little more runtime
Testing.
or lead
okay,
time
yeah. Yes,
to figure out if there is an issue and call Peter or blah, 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 you know what I'm saying?
yes. Yeah, have test time in the beginning.
Right,
Okay, that's good
yeah,
advice.
because it's not fair to your employee, in my opinion, to put him
Right.
in that position.
Well, thank you.
Yeah,
On the HD cameras, by
Yes.
the way, I gather that that will be useful for our new HD channel. But,
Mhm.
are the mobile apps, the TeleView, are all of those channels HD?
The mobile apps, the
Yeah.
Roku? No. I'll find out. I will ask.
I don't know
Tell
if that'll make any difference on the equipment,
I
but,
would assume so.
Yeah.
but-
and one more question about the budget. I have a hard stop at 4:30. So what do we need to do to submit a warrant article, which I assume we have to do?
Yeah, the committee doesn't need to do anything. It will
Okay.
be on there. Typically what happens is we'd present the budget, have discussion, Amalia and Julie can go back and refine it. And then in a future meeting, you guys could vote to recommend what's been presented, and then there'll be an enterprise hearing. And typically Carlin, who was the chair before, would attend. And then after the presentation, the chair could just say, the, PEG Access Advisory Committee voted whatever the vote was to recommend this budget. And that way people in the room know that it's been vetted by somebody else.
yeah, each of the.
Right, so
entities
do we
fund
put any kind
budgets.
of budget into the warrant?
It is a separate article just for PEG, and it's been on the consent calendar for many years, which is why you're
Yeah.
probably not remembering it. So, yes, and if Carmen Reese is there and she feels like the conversation goes smoothly, she will just keep it on the consent calendar.
Right, so the next, we just have,
Staff
the
will
warrant closes
prepare-
then the 15th of January, I mean, the 19th of February, correct?
Yeah, so because there's a placeholder every year, the town manager's office will reach out to Amalia and ask what her updated, slides are, and then she'll have to send those in. So you guys don't need to do anything.
And it
No,
looks
but
like,
we need to vote a budget before the warrant closes, is that correct?
No. I mean,
Okay.
because we don't put, typically, like, if you'll remember, the warrant never contains dollars.
That's what I
The-
thought, I just wanted to check that,
The
okay.
motion will contain the dollars and the enterprise hearing will determine the motion. So.
And the enterprise hearing is in like May, right?
March.
so for ours, I think we're doing the enterprise hearing in early February.
No, that's not.
No, for
No,
us.
the warrant hasn't closed yet.
Right, but our internal one that we're doing to present is gonna be February, early February.
When is the enterprise hearing?
Oh, I don't know, it's not scheduled yet.
It's
I'll
in
have-
May,
What's scheduled?
Okay,
It's
May,
scheduled.
okay, because I was like, what? Okay, good, thank you.
No, I was gonna mention what Jason also said, it's been on the consent calendar
Mhm.
for all the time that I've removed it, so,
Yep,
which
Good.
is good.
Which is good. Yeah.
okay. All right, moving on to our fund balance. So the basically, I looked through the FY 23 this is our actuals. We have the unaudited FY 24 numbers. And then I projected and proposed for FY 25 and 26. There was a bit of a, when pulling reports and looking at the FY 24 numbers, there was a mistake in the bucketing of some of the dollars, and it has to, a journal entry was made to correct it, but we will not see that journal entry corrected for at least another month. But based upon the calculations that I did, that is the unaudited figures for 24, and then the 25 and 26 are based upon our revenue projections and our expense, what we're projected to spend. Now, I did want to talk a little, while it's not part of the FY 26 proposed budget, I did want to talk about the Jumbotrons because, that was a discussion that we had before, and there's some things that we sort of need to talk about. So obviously, we need to look at how we're gonna fund it. We've talked about that in the past. And then there is some work about confirming where we want to use them, the location, and how many that we're gonna need, because that's, you know, impacts our account. And then basically, once we can determine how we're gonna fund it and where we think they're gonna go and how many we're gonna need to secure the contract, and Julie will start the process for getting that on. So we requested a proposal for Thistle. So there's basically two jumbotrons that we can get. The first one is a smaller, you can see the features and how big they are and sort of the viewing distance and the cost. So this is the smaller of the two, and it's $6,500, and a viewing distance about 300 feet. So depending on where
And it takes a vehicle that
It
size,
does.
okay,
It
that's
comes-
important.
it's a trailerized
Okay.
solution. And so we really need to, it's important to understand where these are going for many reasons. Number one, make sure the sizing is appropriate so we don't get a tiny one for a bad spot. But also we need to identify the location for public safety, because anytime you amass these, you're gonna get amassed people coming, and they need to understand that now we could have the potential of people amassing in this parking lot or that parking lot, so that we don't disrupt any public safety, concerns. So this is our first option. It's not inexpensive. It's about $6,500. They
Mhm.
come, they deliver it, they put it down where we want it, and basically then the MMN team will connect to it to provide the feeds that we would want. The second option, this is the larger screen, and this is, if we were talking this would probably be, town square, townhouse, the square where you would have
Mhm.
people. I mean, I don't know, but this is the larger, there's only two options. This is the larger of the two options, and it's 10,500. And it gives you, it has a farther viewing distance. So depending on where we would put it, you'd be able to have,
Right.
Larger audience here.
Yeah. No, we drove the parade route, and, I was thinking, I mean, this is gonna be one of the questions when I meet with everybody, but with the activity, the ceremony happening at the bridge, on either side of the bridge, there's so much land, so much flat grassy space, whether by the old manse, or on the other side. So once I find out what's actually happening at the bridge, then we can decide that maybe that goes
Right.
to the people who want to see the bridge activity, but they can't get close.
But we do.
Yeah, you're gonna have,
Is that gonna be a big ceremony? Is that gonna? be
yeah,
power?
that's where the ceremony generally occurs. I mean, John Arena knows
Yeah.
the exact,
So we'll ask him.
would that, Jason, would that, something like that fit, right to the left of the town hall in that parking area? If we did, I'm just trying to think of places that'll fit around Monument Square.
Right.
There's a grassy area, but that sort of faces,
Well, it will fit, but I think to Amalia's point, the question is where
where
would
would
you
it be
get
the most
5,000
view? Yeah,
people to be able to see it?
Yeah.
Like, if you can fit it there, but only 100 people can see it,
Yeah,
you're
yeah,
wasting
yeah.
your money.
Then it-
So we need to find an area where a lot
Yeah.
of people, how high, do you know how high that goes? I mean, that's probably 8 feet to the top of the
17.
trailer, so
Yeah.
then it's probably
yeah.
another,
Good point.
probably another 10
Good
feet
point.
above that. So,
So Jason, I was at the 250th meeting the other day when they discussed this. And, definitely Amalia and Julie, you want to coordinate with John Arena. He has
Yeah.
all the details on the parade route and the ceremony at the bridge. And as far as the Jumbotron, one of the things they want to do, as Corey mentioned, there's been a number of inquiries from disabled people. And they're
Sure.
calling the national park, they're calling the town. They're gonna arrive, some of them are at the Concord Depot, because the MBTA is going to put a temporary platform for accessibility. So we want to be able to put a Jumbotron somewhat near there so those people can see, because we don't think we can transport them all up to the bridge,
Gotcha.
especially
Okay.
wheelchairs. So one of the sites they were talking about was the umbrella. And I'm not sure if that means the parking lot or indoors or exactly how that's gonna work.
That's interesting.
If we did it indoors, wouldn't we be able to hook up to something they already have? So we can have that as an option and put this
That's
someplace
interesting.
else.
Right,
Because if we want to live stream it.
Yeah,
And so then at that point, all you have to do is pull up YouTube to whatever your projection screen is. And you can do that, yeah.
So- can you go back to number one? What's the measurement? I mean, I'm trying to figure out if I think we need two, Terry. What are what are your thoughts? At least two. Terry?
yeah, I do think that if we can afford to, we should get it for sure.
Okay.
And
One thing, do we,
definitely, to coordinate with John Arena.
All right, I will do that.
They know all the details now of what time the parade starts, exactly where it's going, exactly what's happening at the bridge. They just don't
Okay.
know which speakers are speaking when, but they have to end the ceremony at the bridge in an exact time because the parade has to come back and people have to go to Lexington. It's all on a very strict time schedule, and the military flyover is at an exact time.
Military flyover, I need to know what time that is, so we're ready.
Right.
you want to
so-
go in the jet?
Mhm.
To go up.
Send a drone. What size is the smaller one?
It's about 16 feet by 10 feet for the screen.
Because I'm thinking maybe a combination of two, depending on where they go.
So what I think is really important, we need to sort of determine how we want to, if we want to go ahead and fund it, I can give you some options on how we can fund it.
Okay.
And then once we do that, we secure that and we start the procurement process, then Julie's gonna take over and she's gonna site walk and she's gonna talk through where it would be, and then we can determine, I mean, do we have room to put three, right? Is it based upon the location of who
Yeah.
you're talking to, does it make sense? Is public safety on board with us putting those there, and does it
Okay.
cause any issues with their public safety plan, right?
Yeah.
We don't want to disrupt that.
Right.
So once we identify that, hey, we're gonna go forward and sort of give you some options how to do that, then I think we take it from there. And then probably for the next meeting, we can sort of give you here's what we found, here's where they're proposing putting it, public safety's good with it, we're there. And then sort of have that sort of thoughtful, put together plan. But I think the first step and what we need to move more quickly on is for us to get on the, to do the procurement and get on contract and make sure that somebody else doesn't occupy these for one of their events, and then now we're stuck.
Yeah, right, right.
So that's what I
Right.
really
One-
want.
It just thoughts are flying through my head. Yeah, because we need to sit down with John Arena and Fred Ryan, because he knows those two people I think will
Okay.
be critical.
All right.
And I'm
do-
also thinking for a big one, we haven't talked about utilizing the fields at Concord Carlisle High School, because not everybody's gonna fit at the bridge in the center of
So
town.
that's the UCC. So Unified Command Center is going to be at the high school.
Oh, so they're using
I
it
don't-
already?
I
Dima?
don't, well, they might not be using the field, but sometimes they don't want 5,000 people
Okay,
outside their field.
That's good to know. But
We-
my-
Actually, I don't think that's correct. I think the Unified Command Center is at the Minuteman
yeah,
That's what I heard.
High
it is.
School.
Yeah, it's a vote. They
It's
gave
not at the
Oh.
Minuteman vote.
High School. And the other thing is that time is
Thank you.
absolutely of the essence in regarding to doing the RFP, because it was mentioned that a lot of these jumbotrons and other things are going to be used at the marathon 2 days later. And you need
Yes.
a special truck to transport them, so it's unlikely that the same jumbotron can come to our event and then be at the marathon with Easter Sunday in the middle. So a lot of them are already spoken for, so the sooner you can do the bid, the better.
We
Yeah,
need
this is
to-
Megan. I think we should
Okay.
fund it.
We need to make a
Yes.
motion to allocate up to X amount of dollars now, just so you can get the ball rolling, Amalia.
Hey, can they do that?
No, so what if I could, I think what we need to do, because it would, so no, because I don't think that's what we need to do, but what we do need to do is, so in previous, I need to have a discussion with, I think, the town manager, but in the previous year in FY 25, you guys had allocated, a purchase of a vehicle for Minuteman. Well, I think that was a wonderful idea when you were talking about it and sort of your forevision, but I think in hindsight, and Julie and I talking about that now, I think we have some concerns about that. And one of the concerns that we have is, number one, we have no space to park it here. Parking is an absolute
Nightmare.
crazy nightmare. And so now we would add that to her mix to find a place for her to park that. Number two, I think the issue was to use it for the 250th event. That made sense, but I think we could do it in a more cost-effective manner while we rent one vehicle for a week. She can use it. She is able to, utilize it for the 250, and then she doesn't incur the yearly maintenance and upkeep and of a vehicle, right? And then the third, I think part of the issues, we wanted to use it as sort of like an advertising sort of piece, right? But I think Julie has come up with some really good ideas where she's retrofitting personal vehicles with logos. She's using, uniforms that identify them as Minutemen personnel. Like, so we have those laid into the budget now where we didn't have those before. And I think we can, attempt to use that. And I think the vehicle money that we had allocated, I think I'm going on a limb here, but this is a trailerized vehicle.
It's a vehicle.
That maybe we could look at utilizing what you had allocated for vehicles into allocating it in support of the 250th to use the jumbotrons. So I just have to, I just have to sort of work that through the wickets to make sure that we're not gonna run into any, legal issues, but we gotta do that quickly, because if it is okay, we can't,
Yeah, and I have to hold
need
it to make sure they don't rent this to anybody else.
yeah, we need to get
We have to
going
give
on
them
that.
Okay, yeah,
payment
and if you find that any problems with that, and that you need private fundraising, give me a call.
Okay. All right, so I think, Erwin, thank you for that, but I think right now, I just wanted to propose that to you, and then I'm gonna
Okay.
go back and sort of figure out how to effectively do that, and then I can report back to the team, and then we can get on purchase. And really what I wanna know is, do I need one or do I need three, right? Because that does make a difference. That's the immediate task that we're gonna go after.
Right. I need to run, unfortunately, but
Okay,
I mean, I think there's consensus that we want to help. We just need to know. We're happy to help.
absolutely.
Yeah, cool.
So
What-
just.
What are your ideas on how many we need?
I think we need to walk through it, and we need
Yeah,
to
I
understand
think we need to know where the crowds.
where the crowds are gonna be. And like I said, I don't wanna be a broken record, but we need to make sure public safety,
Yeah.
we're not gonna disrupt anything in their public safety.
Right. So-
With amassing of crowds.
So
anyone.
you want that meeting this week or next, right?
Absolutely.
I'm
And
gonna
she's
say-
already reached out
Mhm.
to talk about lining up and syncing up to make sure that we can have that conversation sooner versus later
So,
and identify. I mean, if we get three, we're talking 2022,
23,
right?
yeah.
So we're not,
22, 23.
yeah.
so John
I'll let-
Arena, Fred Ryan, and I just, those are the two people that I have on my,
I think they're gonna give you the best sense. And if they think that somebody else needs to be there, like Rob or Gary, they'll say that,
that's right, Rob and Gary, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay,
okay?
okay, great.
And
Okay,
again,
good.
whatever you need, just, I'll give you my number before I go, but just, cause I think that's gonna be really important.
Really important.
So with that, I'd like to, like I said at the initial, I'd like to get the initial, approval, from the committee to, with the proposed budget so that we can continue sort of down the process of going to enterprise hearing and then eventually, annual town meeting. And if there's any edits that you would like me to make, I'd be happy to make those, but that's our proposed.
Okay, well, I think it was a very thorough presentation. Thank you very much. It's very, very good. So anybody else have any comments on the budget? Can't see the screen right
We
now.
can't see it.
Go to the members, yeah, go to what's on your screen.
Or hit escape.
Can you drag them over?
Stop share maybe.
Yeah.
Okay, so I don't hear anything. Oh, I don't see
Look over
anything.
there.
Oh, oh,
No, can you drag the zoom over. Yeah, escape out of here, yeah.
oh.
There you go.
Well, anyway, Julie, thank you also. So both. of you
Wow,
brought
yeah,
that
you both
together.
did a fabulous
Great
job.
job. Very good. So moving on, it sounds like everybody thinks as I do that you know, everything is going very, very well on that. So to wrap up on item 6, talk about the mission statement, we can pick that up in the next meeting.
Do you need a vote?
Oh, yeah.
No?
Well, I mean, because you may still change it. Like, unless you're positive you don't want to, you could ask them to recommend it now.
Well, will I need to come, I will have to come.
Right, before the enterprise hearing.
Yeah.
Right. Well, can we do that? When is the enterprise hearing again?
When,
Yeah, I mean, I don't.
Terry, do you know when the enterprise hearings are? Do you have the schedule in front of you? Cause when I went to the town website, it's not there.
She's looking.
Otherwise, if we can do that at the next meeting.
I'm here,
Jason, are there any other concerns we
be-
should?
it
Oh,
should
no,
be on the town meeting,
It's not,
it should be, and I think it's in April. If you go to town meeting calendar,
I see 3 hearings in April.
yes,
public hearing,
4, 5.
town, hybrid, select board, enterprise. It's May 1st.
Oh,
So you have until May. So,
Right, okay, why don't we plan to pick it up? I'll put it on the agenda for either next
don't have
month or the
quorum.
month thereafter.
they don't have quorum.
they've left. Or-
They don't have enough to vote.
Well,
What
Megan.
what do you need from us?
I
Do
do,
it.
like
You're all set.
approval, yeah, like that we're good and there's no edits that you think that we need to add or
At this time, or-
point,
yeah.
at this point, then that
So,
will.
so
okay.
a vote on, having reviewed the information presented.
Yep.
That we have,
But the committee recommends the budget.
Yes.
that the
we-
committee
with the
recommends.
budget,
Yeah, okay.
right, yes.
Yeah, I wasn't sure about that.
And is
language.
Megan still here? Cause if Megan's here, you still have a quorum.
Megan, are you
Okay.
Yep.
here?
I'm here, yep, just moving
Okay,
parts, so sorry about that.
Okay,
Okay.
I
All right.
so move.
Okay.
That we recommend the budget,
Okay,
or
Yeah.
is that the
Oh,
language
then
I
you need a
want?
Second, yeah.
the second,
Third,
okay. All right,
Yes.
Thank you.
everyone, is everyone gone?
I think
Sorry.
Erwin
Okay.
and
Cynthia.
Cynthia left. They had a
Oh,
hard
okay,
stop
yeah.
at
So,
4:30. So thank you.
then I agree. Yeah, well, so, just
Did
a
Mary
comment
vote?
on
She's
item
there.
6 on the mission statement, we can cover that.
Yeah.
One
Megan needs to vote, no.
Oh,
oh, I say
Megan.
yes.
Okay.
Oh,
I-
okay.
Okay, she did, okay.
Oh, all right.
Oh, I didn't hear from Terry.
Thank
That
you
Terry's
for,
not a member of the committee.
thank you for picking that up.
Sorry.
all right. Okay, got that done.
All right.
Okay.
So just one
Individually,
comment on
we
item
apply.
6, I thought that, there's one very useful thing in your getting together with the bridge.
Yes.
I think going forward, it's going to be very useful to have a closer relationship with the bridge.
Yes.
Can I help you?
And we can
Yes.
cover that, you know, as we go forward.
Great.
So, looks like there is a liaison. I don't see any liaison.
Anybody on?
That's just us.
Okay.
We have 4 people.
Who's the one
So-
other than Megan?
Hmm?
Who's on other than Megan?
Just
and Terry?
Megan, Megan and Terry.
Well, that's three. Nancy Pierce is.
Hmm.
Nancy Pierce is on.
Oh, she is, oh.
Well, yes, I'm here, but I'm not a liaison,
Okay.
so you can ignore me.
Well, it says liaison and public comment. You are a member
Yeah.
of the public.
Well, I don't actually have any comment,
Okay.
but thank you for
Okay.
asking.
All right. Very well, since there's no further public, do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved?
Second?
second,
Okay, so, Chloe,
Yes.
and who else do we see? there?
Megan.
Megan, okay, Megan,
Yep, adjourn, I agree.
okay, so I agree, so we are adjourned.